design, or the storyboards, or also directing. There's a lot of different roles that I play, and the, you know, overarching art director role that have been, you know, it's been keeping me on my toes, but it's really exciting to do both aspects.
Yeah, that seems like a lot on your plate. And yeah, but you love it, it seems like.
Yeah, I do. I really love the mix. I think that just for myself, and this is different for everyone, but for myself, I like to try new things and dabble in new things. So I think that I would be become a little unhappy eventually if I was doing just like overseeing creatives or just doing the design entirely. So I'm really happy in the role that I play, and being able to do both and be hands-on as well as a little hands-off and more high-level picture.
Awesome. I definitely want to dig into that some more, like kind of what your day-to-day looks like, or maybe some daily routines or rituals that you do to be able to tackle so much. But before we do that, I want to dig a little bit into your superhero comic book origin story. Where are you from? You know, just when did you start to get interested in what you're doing now, or art in any way? And let's just start from the beginning.
Yeah, so if I were to start this comic book style, I'd say like Crayola markers in hand. This girl, I'm not gonna go into that, but so I grew up in LaPorte, Indiana, small, medium-sized town, very lovely. And I think I always found myself like preferring like markers and pens to my playing with my Barbies. And I've always loved writing little notes and drawing little things for my parents and putting it under their pillow. And then that grew into making like little stop motion videos, or making little, you know, funny videos with my cousin, and just kind of getting really wacky and creative with video and motion.
Now,
And then,
when you started doing stop motion, how old were you at that time?
I think I was probably eight-ish, nine-ish. I know I was in elementary school, and I can't remember what age you are in elementary school, but
right.
yeah.
But your parents had a video camera then, because that was before iPhones.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I think my parents had like a pretty decent video camera, but I mostly went over to my cousin's, and she had a little bit better of a video camera that her family had, and we would, you know, go out into the backyard and wear like funny costumes and make little backyard videos, and then, you know, get our markers out, make little stop motion, try to figure out like, how do they do that on YouTube? I want to try it. And then like make little things move, and it looked so janky, but it was a really fun medium.
Do you still have those?
I bet my cousin does. I bet she saved it somewhere. But I do have like some probably lost in like a foreign YouTube like username that I haven't used in years. I probably have a couple saved. I gotta look into that, because that'd be fun to look back on.
Yeah, I just recently got a bunch of home DVDs from my mom. And so I saw some, because I did the same thing. We were always making videos, and
yeah,
just looking back on just a couple weeks ago, it was just like stuff that I thought did not exist anymore. Even stop. Do you remember there's like little toys called homies? Do you remember those? So you put 50 cents. It was like little homies. They were just really cool little just figurines. But I made a stop motion movie for one of my classes in high school. That was my trick in high school, was not to do a paper or speak in front of the class, but like make a video.
yeah.
And I would always get 100%. Like it didn't have anything to do with like, it didn't even have to do with the projects or the assignment. It was just a video, and that was my trick to getting A's. in high school.
That's a really good trick. And it always worked because teachers would see that you went the extra mile of doing something creative and putting all that information into a video form. And they'd be so impressed. They'd be like, what? How did you go home and then just bring this back instead of bringing back a paper?
Right.
And it's like, well,
Yeah. And to me, it was not an extra mile. It was to not run the mile that they assigned.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. So you started making videos around elementary school with your cousin, and then where do we go from there?
Okay, so that takes us to middle school. I remember middle school just loving and falling in love with my art classes and just really getting invested in it and putting a little bit more of my efforts towards that than any other class. I really loved math, which is it feels like so the opposite of, what I do now, but I loved working on my math homework, but then working on, art projects and trying to take some of the assignments and do that again, but at home with my own materials at home. And it was really fun. And then towards the end of middle school was when my dad had passed away. And I think that's when my sketching and my involvement in art really shifted. I felt like I was sketching a little bit more like creepy crawlies and creepy characters and some things that were like a little bit more dark because one of my friends had said this one phrase, it's okay to let the pain fuel the art. And something about that I just loved so much. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna draw all these creepy characters because life is creepy and weird and it doesn't make sense. And I feel like I put a lot of that energy towards just drawing and sketching all over my notebook and turning in homework assignments that had characters alongside of them. And then that takes us to high school where I was doing a lot of the same. And then with Dot's son, we had actually created like a little hand painted shoe business, which kind of changed everything for me. It made what I love to do is like paint and draw and be creative, and made it seem like, okay, you can actually do something with this. Like you can actually, make money doing this and have a career doing this. Like what? It's something that nobody talks about. And I think even in my art classes, nobody talked about making a career out of this. It was just fun. And it was just like, do this fun thing. And maybe if you really love to paint, you can become a fine artist, but no one really talked about like design or like how you can make that into various, like a range of different careers. And then so that
I find that a lot. I want to interject because I bought a pair of those shoes. The girl I was dating at the time, well, first of all, I saw you all doing the shoes, and of course Will is my cousin, and so it wasn't really about buying something from my cousin and his partner with their shoe business. It was more just I was blown away at the talent that you all had and the idea that you had to create custom shoes. And I remember exactly what they look like. I doubt she still has them, but I wouldn't be surprised if she did. I don't talk to her anymore, but I remember those shoes. It was like a Texas flag. And do you remember making them?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't remember every single one of shoes. I remember being like looking back on that, I'm like, no one keeps those shoes. No one would have those shoes anymore because they're probably like extremely worn, or they're like, the paint may be crumbling. I mean, we were mixing it with like a fabric medium, but how long can that last? And one of my friends had reached out like two years ago, and they just sent me a picture of the shoes that they had gotten from us, and I was like, what, you still have these? And it just like felt so amazing. I was like, I had no idea. Like I don't even think I still have my own that I made for myself.
Right.
And it was just like, wow, it's so cool to see, because that was such a like important moment to take me like where I am today.
Right. And those, like, I wouldn't be surprised if almost everybody still had their shoes. There's something about something being customly made for you in that way in a shoe. You know, shoe is such a huge art form and a part of our culture now. And where did that idea come from? Like, where did that spark?
I think that we had seen like on the internet just like incredibly designed shoes, and shoes that people were making just for themselves, like maybe not even with paint or marker, but with just how they like sewn it together themselves. And people were being extremely creative with shoes. And like, you know, you have your sneaker industry, and shoes are such a incredible like form of expression, just like your clothes, like the way you pick out your shoes are just, it's so cool, and you can get really creative and funky with it. So we were pretty like jazzed, and this was a long time ago. I kind of forget exactly what sparked it, but I remember being extremely jazzed about just how creative people were getting with shoes. I think we're like, hey, let's go to Hobby Lobby, let's pick up some, you know, fabric markers and just pick up some white Vans and get weird with it. And then we liked it, and then we, you know, talked to a couple friends, and we're like, hey, do you want you know, some skeleton feet drawn on your shoes? What's your shoe size? They'll do it for you. And then it just kind of caught on, and people were like, hey, I want a pair, I want something different. And then we just, like, it just kept snowballing and growing, and we're like, we should make money doing this. We should do this for real, because it's fun and people were enjoying it.
Yeah, they really liked it. How many would you say you made?
I think myself, I made maybe like 20 pairs, 15, 20. I wish I kept a better log of, you know, like everything we made, and took a photo of every single one just to collect it. And I think Will made probably the same or more, because he had like a really sick style, and he was just like, people would come to him and be like, hey, just do what you do. And people would come to me and be like, you know, I want something that's a little bit different, it's like more branded towards me, and I'd like cater a little bit more customly, and Will just had like a really cool style that everyone just came to. And
Gotcha.
yeah.
Well, wait, I want to, can I interject?
Yes, you can.
Because I was in the sidelines watching all this go down. And I mean, even the local newspaper in the town of LaPorte was intrigued by this business that these young high schoolers were developing, that they came and they covered them, they caught them in action, and it ended up being on the front page of the paper. In addition to that, they would have like marketing meetings. I mean, they were really building a business model. And then these marketing meetings kind of catapulted into, okay, what's the name? What's the tagline? And it was called Bad Habits, HABITZ.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Lose your bad habit and get one of ours kind of thing. And they even came up with these really cool nylon kind of backpacks with the simple cord, almost like an athlete, where you would just throw your shoes in it. And so that's how they packaged their shoes. So yes, they had the product and, you know, the whole design. They had custom, like, here's our stock custom. No, here's our custom. You create it. We'll work with you on that. And then, or the design. And then they had their stock items, right? You had like certain stock designs where it's like, okay, you want one of these 5? I mean, they were, and you know, they're students, they're athletes, and they were doing this business on the side. So it's like, there wasn't a lot of time for anything else. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. But it was, I mean,
And
it was so fun. It didn't even seem like work at all.
it was so fabulous to witness all that, the evolution of that. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah. Yeah. What's interesting, something you said right before that was how this was a turning point for you. So I think that's why I want to sit on it for a little bit. But these art classes, and I find this a lot with most artists, whether it's theater or whatever it may be, are taught the craft in school and aren't really thrown a bone when it comes to the business of what you are doing, or the business of marketing yourself. And so, one of the things that was a big impact for me is when I went all in and I was in a band for a while. And that there taught me almost everything that I know about that aspect of marketing yourself, or taking yourself seriously, to have people pay you to do what you are doing. And we managed ourselves, like we did everything there. And it sounds like this was that moment for you. And what a cool time for that to happen in high school as well, to have that moment of like, wow, like this is something I can what's also so cool about it is you didn't jump into it to do the business of it. It came out because you were doing something you were inspired by and you loved.
Yeah, it definitely taught me so much. And I did learn, it was like a complete trickle effect, like working on the shoes and having like our own little business just really made design and like any creative endeavor seem like reachable or possible. I think, for a while, my mom is in an incredible support. But I think at that time she was pretty skeptical, as most parents were, that like, you can do it, you can have fun, but like, what else are you gonna do? Like, what do you want to be? Like, well, I kind of want to be a designer or an artist, and at that time she'd be like, yeah, but are you sure? Are you gonna make money? Are you gonna be a starving artist? And I was like, I don't know, I just like it. And I think that was having that business, that small business, like even showed my mom, like, you can make something of this. And I think she was really, really proud during that time too, to see that, we were making money. We're, like Dot said, we were in the paper, which was just so crazy. It just felt so surreal when it was happening, because we were tiny. We were little babies in high school, and we had a business. Like that's so rare.
You even had business cards.
Yeah, we had business cards.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a cool thing to learn, those aspects of business cards, a logo, a name, a tagline. And this is like pre-social media, or social media out. It was probably brand new.
Yeah, it was pretty brand new. I remember Facebook being definitely a thing, and we post some photos, but
no Instagram.
No
Instagram. Yeah, I think it was all word of mouth. And I think something that Dot had said was specifically was that you can, oh, here it is. Oh my God.
Whoa, look at you two.
Blast from the past. This was almost 10 years ago, Nikki.
Wow.
This is from
so
2010.
Cool.
Kathy sent this down from the heavens. That's so awesome, Kathy.
Kathy, that's great tech work.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Wow.
All right, I'll put it back on you, but do you want to say anything, Nikki, before I take that down? Does it bring back memories?
Oh yeah, it certainly does. And I'm looking at all the markers and all the different paints, and I'm just looking at like the collection of like mediums that we had, and it's just so cool to see. And then there's that little sign that that will remind me of his name, Fred. Is it Fred?
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that, Fred, with the PVC piping.
Yeah, he made us that sign so that it could sit in. We had some pairs of shoes in like a storefront, and
you had him at the Whitaker house up in New Buffalo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we had that little sign that would sit next to the shoes, and it was just like a little section just for us to sell our shoes, and it was really surreal.
And the Whitaker house was a very reputable, high-end boutique for women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot of hits from that. A lot of people reaching out and, you know, asking, and not just women, but I think there was a little bit of a trend of like women asking for shoes for like their son or daughter, and it was really cool. It was a really cool, amazing experience.
Sweet. So this was in 2010. We've got the date now, and so that lasted throughout the rest of high school for you, or when? Yeah. And then so yeah, this happens, and I don't know, did it ever cross your mind to keep this going and that be your career, or did you always know you wanted to dive deeper and get an education?
Yeah, there was definitely a point. I mean, how could there not be a point where you're thinking, oh, I can definitely do this for the rest of my life? I mean, we're making money off of it. We get to do exactly what we love. This is so cool. But I think there was, you know, at the last couple shoes, and I can't speak for Will, but I think the last couple shoes were starting to get really tedious. And there were a couple customers that, you know, they weren't like, they were a little, you know, nitpicky in the design, and it was really hard because you're working with paint and you can't really correct paint when it's already on the shoe. So we'd have to, like, I think there was a pair of shoes that I ate the money and I was like, okay, I'll start over for you. But it just started to like drain like the momentum I had. And I felt like I wasn't really loving working with paint anymore because it was just so like permanent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also around that time, Will had given me a cracked version of Photoshop. So I was Photoshopping some things, and we were working on our business cards in Photoshop. And I was like, I love Photoshop, and this is whatever I can do in Photoshop, I just want to do.
Yeah.
So that's when I started thinking about like Tribeca or a college where I can just like create like design, digital design, maybe even work in film. That's why I don't want to jump around too much, but Tribeca was like number one of the top on my list because they offered design and film and animation, those three things I was really interested in. And I just thought, okay, if I go for design, which is my number one, you know, place, I can also, you know, hang out with the kids who are in film and the animation and learn from them, and I could just soak it all up and be around everything I love. So yeah, I think that, you know, those last two shoes, that kind of really drained me, and I started realizing like I just really love digital design and, you know, creating within the computer. I realized I needed to just learn so much more. I needed to go to school to really build a foundation in it.
Yeah. That's another interesting connection between you and I, having nothing to do with this connection with, you know, you being really close with my cousins and my aunt, but is Tribeca Flashpoint College, which I think at the time was Tribeca Flashpoint Digital Arts Academy, or maybe it was just called Flashpoint. But yeah, which was a relatively new school at the time. It still is a relatively new school. But I think I started working there soon after you graduated, or maybe right after you graduated. And we showed your portfolio and all your work, because my job was to go to the high schools and talk about the college, and really, which I turned into just an hour-long talk to these high school kids about inspiring as much as I could for them to be artists, which, you know, I loved that aspect of it. And that's what I viewed it more as than just come to school here. You know, this is what's great about our school. And one of those things that made it so great was showing your work. And I remember when I came in, that was one of the things they were already showing. And I was like, oh, because I saw the LOK Wishing Tree Foundation. And so unbeknownst to me, maybe I heard that you gone there. I know Katie, my cousin Katie, went there, but it never clicked with me, even when I got the job, that was the school that you all had attended, until that moment where I saw some of the work that we were showing to the students. And so anyway, I just thought it was a really interesting connection, and it just made the fact that I worked there even more exciting for me, because it was, you know, just a job to pay the bills that ended up being a job that I absolutely loved. But so as you're graduating, you're deciding what you want to do. You have this newfound love for Photoshop and digital. You have an interest in film, animation, everything in the digital art realm. And so talk to me a little bit about what you can remember about searching for a college and then going into college.
Yeah. So it started with just looking at the colleges that I knew about and heard about. Like, I heard about IU and Ball State because my brother went to Ball State. My friends were talking about IU, and I was really quite like I wasn't familiar with all the colleges out there, and honestly, I wasn't familiar with much outside of my small town LaPorte. And I was looking at their programs, and I was like, what's in design, and you know, what do they have going on there? And I remember looking at the website, and this is by no means like a knock on those schools, but the website just feels a little like, you know, like not super creative. So I was looking through the website, looking at how they describe design, and I was like, okay, it seems kind of nice. It just doesn't seem very like, you know, their website just seems a little dry.
Mm-hmm.
They probably updated it now and it's probably amazing, but at that time it was a little dry. And so then I was, you know, researching, and I was like, cool colleges that have design and film, something like that. Just really like a vague search. And I think one of the top ones that came up at the time was Full Sail, which is a pretty big one. And it's what I think they just have so much marketing, and they've just really hyped up their school, and they've been around, I think, longer. And they had everything I wanted. I was like, I want to learn about everything. And I had also reached out to oh man, actually, this is all coming back to me. I reached out to this guy whose work I was just so in love with. He was doing things I've never seen before. He was like doing design and motion graphics for environmental spaces, like things that would be projected onto a building, and just really neat stuff. And his design eye was great. His motion was even like amazing. And them together, I was just like, how does this person do this? So I reached out to him, and I was like, I was pretty silly just to be like point blank, like, hey, where did you go to college? Because wherever you went, I want to go. I want to learn how to do what you do. And he responded, and what he responded with changed a lot. And he had went to Full Sail. But he said, yeah, Full Sail, you know, Full Sail's fine. And I learned a lot here. My instructors were great. But let me just tell you now, it is not about the school that you go to. It is not about your instructors. It is what you demand in yourself and demand from yourself to learn, and to be just incredibly hungry for it, so that you can sustain like the long nights and the long hours of just being curious and discovering and learning. Because if you're purely relying on going to a college that, you know, that looks great, and you're just like, oh, if I go to this college, I'm going to be successful. You're not going to get successful that way. You can only be successful by drawing that out of yourself and using that college and your instructors as a tool, as an incredible resource to learn from. But if you're not, you know, like deeply like taking everything that they say and retaining it and learning from it, you're gonna, you know, end up like, you know, wanting more from it or something. So after he told me that, I looked into some other colleges because I was moved. I was like, okay, pressure's off to like find the #1 top college ever that I could possibly go to.
Yeah, that was the, sorry to interrupt you. That's like, that is the best advice. That is the best advice. Like that is incredible. And the courage you had, that you called silly, just reaching out to him and asking where he went to school. You know, I think anybody that watches this that is at that point or in that stage of life, I think it's so important to look at who you admire and be fearless and just reach out and ask or figure out some way that you can learn about what they did. And it'd be one thing to research and Google him and see he went to Full Sail and be like, oh, that's where I'm going. But now that you took that extra step to just reach out to him and ask where you went, you had a way more deeper understanding about why he is someone that you admire, and which really changed a lot in that moment, your mindset, it seemed like.
Oh yeah, it definitely did. Yeah, because I think at that time I had my eye on Tribeca, but I was, you know, pretty unsure because I was looking at their design program, and at that point, going into it, they had just introduced it, so I would be the guinea pig going through the design program. So I was a little nervous about that, and it was much smaller, and it was also, I mean, this was also kind of a factor. It was much cheaper by a long shot than Full Sail, and the work that was coming from Flashpoint, and of course Katie went there, which Katie had a great experience, so that, you know, also made me feel much more comfortable going to Tribeca. But I realized like Tribeca has everything that I want, and I just need to like soak up everything I can there and learn. Just like I said earlier, like I can go there for design, but I can also like soak up everything from like my peers who are in film and also in animation. And yeah, I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought momentarily, but I think that like you didn't need to go to the #1 top ultimate college that people talk about to like really be successful, because you can be successful anywhere you go. It's just like how you go into it. And like you said, so after graduating and kind of being in the industry for a while, I've had students reach out to me, and I love it, and it's so nice, and I try to give them as much information as I can. And I also have countless times trickled down the same advice that one guy had given me before, and said, like, you know, the world is your oyster. You can go to any college, but just make sure you go there knowing that this is on you to take out, or, you know, make your own success, and you have to demand that out of yourself.
Yeah, that's great. It's cool to see that. Like, you never know what you say to somebody that can just impact so many more people.
Sorry.
What's your dog's name?
My dog's name is Desi.
Daisy. Shh.
He's in a Desi, yeah. He's in the stage where he barks at all the mysterious sounds that he hears.
All right, let's go to your time in college then. what you learned and where everything you were learning, where did that ultimately push you to the next place?
Yeah. Oh man, college was such a dream. And so Tribeca is quite small, and it doesn't have like the same campus as your typical like visual of a college, you know, like a college where you can go to the parties and you can make friends and have fun. So this one was much smaller, and it was a complete dream because it was so small. You just learn so much, and the instructors really just like pour into you, and they really are just there to, you know, truly listen to you. And man, I learned so much. I remember so much of my instructors, but there was this one instructor who, it was in my second year, who came in, and he was a little rough, but he came in and he looked at our portfolios, and he was like, man, we have a lot of work to do. And I was like, oh gosh, don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. And he would tell you exactly how it is. And I learned so much to like really appreciate that, and, you know, accept that and just get better from it, and like take his advice with, you know, toughen my skin up a little bit, because that turned out to be what the real world is like. The real world is going to give you, they're going to criticize your art, they're going to criticize your work, and you have to accept it because they might have a really good reason why. Or, you know, I've had plenty of times when I was working with a client, and I made something and they gave me feedback and it was a little bit negative, and or like a lot of things I needed to change. And I was like, man, because I definitely thought I sent that and I felt 100% about it. And then I made those changes, and it was kind of amazing because you hear a lot of, you know, you hear a lot of stories about how a client ruins everything, and that's definitely true. But, you know, some clients, their feedback is so valid. And that's what I learned in college, is just like not, I think the beginning of college, I'd be kind of like, you know, my instructors would say like, oh, you need to change it. Like, why did you use red? Like, why do you think red was a good idea here? And I'd be like, well, I use red because it looks awesome. Like, it looks great. And they just, you know, really kind of like dig in, kind of not like purposefully dig into you, but like just kind of make you really think about like purposeful design, and like give you the feedback to, you know, just get better. Which also kind of leads me to, in my first year of college, I was working on the LOK branding, which was, I was learning a lot about the importance, again, of making everything purposeful and doing things with intention. And I think every aspect of the branding in LOK was just so like purposeful. And, you know, between like learning that from instructors throughout college, it just like made such a difference in my work.
Yeah, it sounds like too, when that you know, new teacher came in, and it was like a really good taste of what the real world is like. And even you mentioning when you work with clients, and you know, they're going to give you feedback, and sometimes I guess that common frame is like clients will ruin the art or they'll ruin the design. But I don't know, let me know what you think about this, but it seems like, yes, that can be true to a point, especially if there's a client that knows nothing about what they're talking about, and or whatever. But I think to a point, it seems like an attitude that, or a mentality that you have to be open to more than just what you have created, that when you are getting feedback, you're able to pivot, and you're able to see how you can improve what you have done, even though you thought that it was 100%. do you
Yeah.
find, is that something like what with working with clients, first of all, what kind of clients do you work with right now?
Yeah, I work with such an array of different clients. So between like small, mid to large tier companies, there's some clients that are we're going through an agency and then going through a client. So it's like multiple rounds of feedback, goes through different people, but then also direct to client. So usually direct to client is much better because you can have, you know, a little bit more of a thorough conversation with them and get like more thorough feedback. And when it trickles down, it gets a little hairy. And that's when I do think it's a little bit more likely that the design is going to, you know, maybe fail or just become a little less successful.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one thing what you're saying is one thing I remember learning from, this was after I graduated, but my first job, Weber Shandwick, was my creative director told me that design is art with a job to do. So design and art are very different. And I think that took a while for me to learn because, you know, if you're creating art, that's a part of you and it's something that you're putting out there and you're not like I'm failing to describe it well, but like design,
an expression of yourself.
yeah. So when it gets criticized, it hurts because it's you.
Mm-hmm.
Design is, you know, it's to solve a problem. It's to solve a problem in the world, be it, you know, graphic design for marketing and telling the true story about a brand, or the design of like architecture design and in interior design. And it's like, what the problem is, making people feel good or feel the story around the environment through design. And it has a job to do. It's more open for like critique, and it can be extremely subjective, but you have to take in all the feedback because you can't just create like design or solve a problem if you are just putting your own taste out there. You have to think about like what are the colors to use that make everyone feel a certain way, not just the colors that you think are nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's like what's the font that says that it's soft and soothing and not just like your preference.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be a little bit more science behind it.
Yeah. So as an artist doing this job and working with clients, and as an artist who is expressive, but now is working, you know, I guess that shift that you have of recognizing that it's a job and it's a problem that you're solving. How do you get your mind around that as Nicki the artist? What is it in you that, well, I guess that is my question. How do you get your head around that as the artist side of you?
Yeah. Well, it definitely takes, you know, after graduating college and creating design and pieces for clients and for a specific project, I had to learn that I had to keep a certain, this is also, I feel like everyone has a different perspective on this, so don't take mine, you know, take mine with a grain of salt, but I had to leave a certain percentage of myself outside of my work when it comes to working with clients, and then I rely on personal projects to bring that Nicki as an artist out and to like use my voice and kind of play with my own style that's like more free and expressive. And then I find that makes design and working with clients seems so like lackluster, but I also have a part of me that I love solving problems, and I love surprising people, and I love when clients are like, yes, that says our brand, that says everything that we stand for, yes. And it just feels so good. And it might not be like my style, but I'm solving that problem and, you know, making it purposeful, and, you know, maybe trying something new, or you know, really leaning into the process. Like, I find that I can still be like Nicki as the artist within my process to get to the end result. And the process could be like playing with different mediums to, well, just as an example, like with the LOK Wishing Tree Foundation branding, for the wishing tree, I'd use paper and I was cutting out a tree, and like I was having fun with it. And that felt like Nicki the artist, you know. But then at the end, I was creating to solve a problem and creating for intentional design. That I loved how it turned out, and it was incredibly beautiful. But it's, you know, for other client projects that are a little less like beautiful and a little bit more like straightforward, you can have a little bit more fun in the process.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. There's our logo. Yeah. Well, while this logo is up, thanks, Kathy, for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Because we now visually see what you have done. Can we take like 1 minute and just kind of talk about what we're seeing in this design?
Oh yeah.
Right.
Okay, so you are seeing well, there is a lot that goes into this logo. So and I won't go too much into the history, but Lindsay, and Dot, you may correct me if I'm wrong, but Lindsay had taken a photo of this wishing tree that was in a different country. I think maybe it was in Spain or somewhere, and Lindsay just fell in love with it. She loved it. And so I was using that photo, as well as you know, at Lindsay's celebrate, I would say, like her celebration after she had passed, there was a wishing tree that was planted as her memorial, and everyone created, you know, from what Lindsay had taken a photo of, everyone created like wrote a wish on these paper cut butterflies and hearts, and then hung it on the tree. And it was just so beautiful. It was so moving. It was such a like unique sight. And the logo was to, you know, show the wishing tree for the foundation. And then so you see the tree, the hearts and the butterfly wishes. You see Chilby, the delightful Chilby, who was Lindsay's you know, partner in crime, little fur partner in crime. And also you see the LOK. Originally there were different, you know, renditions of the logo, the LOK. There was I think one version where the LOK was handwritten, another version where it was just a font and it was kind of like laid in front of it. But yeah, that's kind of like to sum it up.
Yeah, cool. This also brings me back. You did the Lux Collective.
Oh yeah,
well, right?
Luxwagon.
Yeah, the Luxwagon. That's what it was.
I sure did.
Yeah, that one's super cool. The Luxwagon is. Dot, do you want to jump in and like give us a 30-second pitch of the Luxwagon real quick?
Yeah, Luxwagon is a business model that I developed along with my business partner, and it's a boutique on wheels. So we went to Nicki because Nicki is just uberly talented, and I know how it's like to work with her. So as a client, really, to go through this creative process and how she conceptualizes, and she's brilliant at taking the client's ideas and interpreting them in that design process. So there's the Luxwagon. That's a converted, that's an old potato chip truck, actually, Jay's Potato Chips.
Mm-hmm.
And we sat down with Nicki on numerous occasions, and we talked about some of our ideas, like the bird. We love the whole idea about the bird and the bird being mobile. You can see the bird to the kind of to the right of that top window up there. And so, you know, and we wanted, you know, a Many Splendid Things, which is on that kind of salmon colored door. And so it was just great to work with her on that. I think she had a lot of fun with that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love this truck. So Nicki, give us a brief walkthrough on your idea with this one too.
Oh yeah, so this is supposed to, you know, have a little bohemian flavor, and in the text specifically I had a lot of fun with, because this was all hand lettered, and I think it was like the first time that I really took a stab at that and took a stab at something really funky like this. And so I had many iterations of sketching out the Lux wagon and playing with the different sizes of the letters. And I think I had most fun with coming up with the letters, because they're just so, you know, unique and funky, and it just fit perfectly with how like whimsy and you know, upbeat the brand was. So that was a really fun way to get some initial hand lettering in there.
Yeah, so I love it.
It was super interesting to me that as we talked about what it would look like and what it would feel like actually on the inside, and we're conveying all this. So we're using a lot of variables, a lot of adjectives, and a lot of images, a lot of photos and magazine cutouts I had shared with Nicki. So I mean, it was like a huge folder that we just kind of unfolded in front of her. So I was really quite interested to see how she was gonna convey that in the font, because you can't put a lot of lettering on a truck. It's the drive-bys. People aren't really going to read it. So the font really needed to carry what was going on the inside. Right. And I love the gypsy wagon, that whole thing. And, you know, as soon as I saw the lettering, like she said, we had to go through a couple of them, but not too many. She did a fine job in nailing this.
Yeah. And I also love the hugs and kisses trail of the bird, you know, which gives it so much movement. Or the XL.
Right.
Yeah.
And at that time, everybody was so familiar with Twitter and the symbolism, you know, the bird. So, you know, who doesn't love birds, right? And so this was, and it's like you wanted that trail of something moving and fleeting, and, you know, everybody loves a hug and a kiss. So
right. And also too, on the Twitter aspect, you've got, you know, food trucks, and this kind of is in the same vein. It's a traveling business, use Twitter so much to you know, let people know where they are next.
Right.
So it's just, interesting connection with that too. Nicki, another thing I love of yours is your motion graphics. I specifically remember seeing what you did with like taking images of the city and adding, you know, that little the flair to them. And then you did a series. I don't remember what the series was, but you had other artists or people that you worked with in a studio, you know, and doing those kind of graphics around them as well. So I'm curious. It seems like what we talked about so far and what you were doing in college was mostly just digital design with not much of a motion graphic aspect. So when did that start to come on your radar, and when did you begin to start developing that?
Oh yeah, so this is another a huge point in my life. So this was at Weber when I started really dabbling into motion. This was like maybe 2 years after I graduated college, and me and one of my colleagues.
Sorry. Yeah, no. yeah. So you graduated from college and then you went straight. Did you get a job right away? Because you ended up working at Weber. You just said 2 years after the
Yeah.
fact.
Oh, sorry. So I was at Weber for 3 years, and this was probably about, I guess, like 1.5 to 2 years into Weber when I started really picking up
Gotcha.
motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got that job right out of college. Is that right?
Yeah. I was extremely lucky to have the career group in Tribeca. I'm spacing on the name. Helped me source like a job, and
Yeah.
they're so great. They're so great.
Yeah,
So I was really lucky with being able to find and apply to some jobs and get accepted by Weber.
Right. Gotcha. All right, cool. So you're about 1.5 years into that and motion graphics.
Yeah. So my colleague Ade Hogue and there was this like little program or a small program that nobody used at Weber that was called Curiosity Hour, and it was where you can bill an hour a week to just do whatever you want in the name of just like learning or working on your mental health or anything. You can just take an hour out of the week. And so we use that hour to challenge ourselves to do something new and give ourselves themes and create something within 60 minutes every single week, and then post about it on Instagram. And that's when I started. At first, it began with just like doing static design or static illustration or sketching, and then it turned into picking up cameras and doing little stop motion bits, or making short videos, or that's when I also started learning how to do cell animation, which is just drawing like frame by frame, just kind of like old school Disney movies where you take I think it's called a cell sheet, and you put it on and you make the next frame. And I fell in love with it. It was so much fun. It was definitely very tedious because to take 1 second of animation took like 20 different frames or 15 different frames of sketching. And I had a lot of fun with it, and that grew into me wanting to continue my education in motion and take some online courses to learn animation and After Effects, and really dive into that industry. And then that ultimately just changed my mind, and I was like, I gotta be in this. I gotta be in the motion industry, and I have to animate. I want to tell a story across a timeline, not just a static image. Like I want to make things move.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so cool to hear, after you get a job that you feel so lucky to have and so excited to have to be in the middle of that, having a new inspiration being birthed that just takes you on a different trajectory. Yeah. So what led up? I know we're running out of time. I could talk to you for. I feel like I can't believe it's been an hour already.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah. So where you're working now, are you working more with that motion graphics? Is that the main focus?
Yeah. I think the main focus is directing. I was introduced or given the opportunity to direct a large stop motion piece in my first year at Demo Deck, and that was amazing because my team trusted me enough to allow me to do that. They gave me so much encouragement. There's so much support, and it was just like, it's a team truly full of love and passion, and to be able to have that experience of directing just really pushed me further and made me want to direct more pieces. So I've been directing a lot more, like mostly live action video, which has been super fun, but also still animating, doing graphics, still doing like storyboards and sketches, different parts of the process. I think currently my focus is directing.
That's so cool. Do you have, where can someone go and see? Do you have some of your work up on Instagram? Obviously, probably.
Yeah. I can, I'll share that link right now into the chat.
Cool.
Here we go. So it's, my Instagram handle is at THENICC, the Nick.
The Nick.
Yeah.
And what we'll find on there is like the artist, you, the artist, right?
Yeah. That's the artist me.
Great. Well, in closing, again, I wish we had more time. Maybe we'll do a Nicki part 2 at some point. But if you had any advice that you would give either a young artist or advice that you would give to yourself when you were back middle school or high school, what would it be?
Oh yeah. Well, I think something that, you know, comes to mind right now that I do wish I knew before, because I was full of so much self-doubt in, you know, high school and, you know, college, middle school, and I didn't think that I was ever going to be, you know, a good enough artist to make something out of it. I didn't even know how to make anything out of it. And I think that if I were to give advice, something that's like even, you know, resonating with me now is that you are going to fall in love with your craft and what you do in any art and dance and visual design and music, everything. You're going to fall in love with it many times over and over again. And you're just going to surprise yourself in the different directions that you can go in, with just all that love you have for it. And I think, you know, alongside that, it's only inevitable that you're also going to experience pockets of time where you may resent it or you may hate it because you're consumed with so much self-doubt, or you're consumed with, you know what a client has told you about that design you put your all into. And you know, it's going to really drain you during they're going to be small, you're going to get over it, small pockets of time. But that's part of this ever evolving relationship you're going to have with, you know, your craft and what you love and your industry. And that just makes it much more exciting because it's really a journey. Like I don't think there's ever going to be an end goal where you're like, okay, I am now an extremely successful artist and I reached the top. You're always just going to be climbing and getting there and trying something different and going in a different direction and climbing and going. And then you might go down because you're like, I don't like that direction. I want to go in this other direction. And it's going to be amazing because you're going to learn so much about yourself and you're going to pick up all of these different things. And I think, sorry, this is kind of bouncing around, but one thing I get so many questions about from young artists is like, how do you find your style? And how do you find your voice and have that be your style? And it's the combination of all of this. It's the combination of the moments that you love it, the combination of the moments that you hate it. It's, you know, everything you stand for. It's everything you like. If you prefer being in nature, if you prefer being in the city, like it's all these things that you like, or all these things that you feel sad, happy, it all goes into your style. People think your style is like, you know, a way that you draw something or a color scheme that you constantly use, but your style is your voice and using the collection of the things that you love to just get it out there and create something out of it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Two things from that is, you know, it can be hard sometimes to be self-aware or to be consumed with self-doubt or imposter syndrome. And I love that you have just talked about that is a part of who you are, or that is a part of your voice. And yeah, I think being able to know, well, you said it great. the other thing I wanted to say, that something that I always try to do for myself is, and you've said it, is to love the journey. You know,
Yeah.
there's been too often I see with artists all the time that are just wanting that, if I could just get to this level, I'll be happy. And then they make it to that level and it's disappointing because they're living for that thing that they're reaching for. And the moment in my life that things really changed for me in my artistry and things changed was when I realized it was the journey that I need to love. That is what is so amazing, and that's what is long lasting because we're always on it. And so I just thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You said it perfectly.
well, again, I wish we could. I want to dig into a little bit more of like your mindset, but I think we summed it up very well. And I think it's going to be very valuable to a lot of people, especially young artists. And you're very inspiring. When I watch you do the stuff that you do, I'm blown away. And I think you're probably one of the coolest people I know. And so it's just really been an honor to talk to you. Dot, I just saw you disappear. Yeah, there you are. Dot, do you want to say anything before we close out?
Yeah, I would. I made some notes because I didn't want to forget anything. I mean, early on, what we saw in Nicki, and I'm talking about high school when I first met Nicki, what we saw in Nicki was what she still hadn't seen in herself. So when she references that self-doubt, I understand when we all have it. But she truly, at that young, ripe age, marched to her own beat. She did it the way that she spoke. She did it with the way her convictions, her passions. She did it in the way that she dressed. I mean, she had her own style and own unique, that's at the really formidable age where you start following everybody else, and try to fit into some little niche. Not Nicki. As you can see through this interview, you see her passion, you see her vibrancy, but I don't think what comes across, and having worked with her on several different projects, is the complexity of Nicki. I mean, it's like a web in that head. And I got to see this. Here's an example. When she would present to me how she interpreted what we wanted with a couple of different projects, and then how she was able to tangibly show us with her doodles. I mean, she's a master doodler. And everything that was just on this paper that took her, and it was almost like this navigable road map, this visual art road map that she would take
Nicki,
you
do you have those doodles as she's talking about this?
Oh yeah, I do.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, Dot. You can keep going. I know she had them close.
Good. I'm so glad she had to do, because of images 1,000 words. So if you see this, you know what I'm talking about. And I was so deeply, she's raw. She took it right down to the visceral that moves anybody to do a project or to create. There's the core, right, that embodies. And while she's looking for doodles, it's very fitting that we go over what?
Sorry, go ahead, Dot.
It's very fitting that we're going over the 1 hour allotted for this with Nicki, because this would have been our Young Artist Expo today. This would have been our 6th year celebrating all of our artists. And I can't think of anyone more fitting to end this conversation series segment than Nicky Mazur. Like she said, it's a journey, right? Timmy, you've said this too about your career and being artists, you both being artists. It's a total journey. So I get super excited to see like, where are you guys going to be in like 5 years? You know what I mean?
Right.
Because you're ever evolving, you're ever changing. And, I get so alive. I get so excited, watching the evolution of a human being that is truly doesn't shut a door. They only open more doors. They seize, carpe diem, they seize those opportunities through that door. And I think that was the other thing too, listening to Nicki about her educational experiences. Often people are funnel, right? They're funnel vision. They go into education, they learn, they apply, and then they go out into the field and they, you know, they earn a living. Whereas with Nicki, what I keep hearing is she would put one foot forward, delve into it, be exposed to more, and then decide to take a different direction. And what she didn't really mention a lot of, which we all experience when you do that, is fear of redirecting. Right? Yeah. It's like, well, no, this is the trajectory that we're on. This is, you know, I'm 20 some years old. I've got to keep going this way. So I hear that when I talk to you, Timmy, and I'm hearing it with Nicki. Has Nicki found her doodles?
She did. Yeah. She did. Nicki, when this streams live and the recording we have of it, we only see who is talking at the moment. So, yeah. So make some noise and throw those doodles up real quick.
I think I pinned the video. So I think.
Oh, did you? Oh, great.
I'm sorry about that. I was talking right over that.
Oh, that's okay. No, it was perfect background. I think it worked out.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Thanks, Kathy. Woohoo! You're killing it today with the tag. Even more so. We're getting good at this, y'all.
We need to keep it going.
Yeah, but I think so. Dot, I am glad you brought that up, because there is an aspect of fear, or there's rather, I'm going to talk in these terms. There is an aspect of, or it is courageous to pivot and to run after something you're interested in. And Nicki, you ooze that. Like, you are so courageous to make those pivots and turn and find something that you love. I just see so many people, artists or not, that are just stuck. And I don't know if they realize they're stuck in the fear of change or the fear of losing whatever is comfortable in that moment for them. And that can just be so debilitating, especially to an artist. And so I'm glad you brought that up, Dot, because it's a courageous thing. We did it. We talked about it, like, it was like, oh yeah, no. And then I was interested in this. So I was like, you know, I'm going to do that. It's like, you're putting a lot on the line when you make those choices. And I think that's, it's incredible and very valuable for someone to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's,
I'm going to say one thing. My hope is that, I'm not done working with Nicki on projects. Just gonna putting it out there.
Sounds like there's a follow-up call coming. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think I think it's the same thing. I mean, you designed those shoes for me a long time ago, but everything I see you do. It's like, you know, I'll call you first if I'm ever in need of something like that.
Nicki, we thank you so much. Timmy, you've been a master host throughout this whole series. And then to hear you guys just this kismet, this jamming between the two of you it breeds just a healthy, beautiful thing. And Kathy, you behind the scenes, man, you have major art going on, my dear, and major creativity.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome job.
Yeah, this is great way to end this season 1 of the series, I'll call it.
I like it.
Yeah, I hope it blesses a lot of young artists for sure.
Yeah, I think anybody who watches it will. So thanks again, Nicki. Thanks, Dot, Kathy.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This is amazing, and what you guys are doing is amazing. And I would love to share so much more with, you know, young artists, because there's so much that I've learned on this journey. And I think, you know, our last point about the fear is such fear and self-doubt are just so heavy and so prevalent, and it ultimately can steer you away from pursuing you know, what you love, and that's such a shame. And you know, I'd love to share more.
That's exactly what I'd love to dive into. If we have you again, is you know, we focused a lot on your journey up until now, but yeah, let's make this happen again.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
Stay tuned. I think we all agree that we would love to.
Yeah.
Thank you. Live love.
Live love.
Live love.
Bravo.
Love you guys so much.
Love you too.
Love ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.